Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Ghost Education 101. Before I bring on our guests, and those of you who are watching, if you watched last year around the same time, you'll recognize him. We do have Blake Best joining us, producer, composer, and author with some exciting updates as to what he's doing. But I just have to tell you guys, it is so great to be back. We have almost a little over a month since we've aired. And of course, you guys are going to recognize tonight is not our normal airing night. This show will re-air Wednesday night when it should have aired, but I am teaching a class with TMCC out in Reno. If you guys are interested in that, send me a message. It is a virtual class. I can get you that. It is It's like basically Ghost Education 101. So it's a ghost hunting class. It's 3 hours long, covers everything. And I wish Philip could make it tonight, but he's not able to make it. He has so many thrilling updates that we need to get you guys updated on, and we'll make sure that we send all that information out your way as to what he's planning. And I have some book signings coming up next week, as well as some other events that I am doing, and a huge announcement, but I haven't made that announcement yet. So you guys stay tuned to the page to see that. So before I continue babbling and waste this entire hour without even bringing my guest on, let's welcome Blake to the show. Welcome to the show, Blake. How are you doing today?
Hi, Heather. How are you? I'm good.
I'm good. Good. Yeah, it's been over a month since we've aired, so I have so much I need to say.
Not a problem. I enjoy listening. Like I said, I love your work, so I'm always fascinated to hear the newest things you're doing. So.
Oh, thank you. And my list just keeps getting bigger and bigger. I can't keep up with it myself. But looking at the list that you sent me, holy crap, you have been busy this last year.
I have, between composing for several films, producing, working on a new book, making that announcement, getting that out, and then working on various other films. I feel like the phrase "too many irons in the fire" really, really applies here, especially since it feels like half those irons are in Freddie's boiler room. So it's starting to get a little hot in there, and I'm ready to get out and have a little bit of free space. All that heat and all those pipes and leaking, and those damn finger blade knives of his like running across everything makes me want to tear my eyes out. So.
And one thing that I have wanted to ask you, and I forgot to ask you last year, and I keep thinking about it randomly throughout the year, waiting. I mean, I know I could always reach out to you and ask you, but this is something I want to ask on the air, of course, is with all the things you write about and produce and your heavy connection with horror movies, do you have any nightmares from your job?
You know, I do. They're not always in the same traditional sense as one would think of being a nightmare. Like sometimes it's, oh, I missed my deadline. Oh, I'm lacking on getting this done. Oh, something happened to the footage, or we've got to reshoot this, or my draft that I sent to the publisher mysteriously disappeared, and I have to go hunt down the latest draft. But that's some of the early on. That was some of the stuff that used to get to me. But something that bothered me a lot growing up, and I think some of it stems from, my background, which you're aware of, is something called night terrors. So I used to have those a lot. I'd wake up at, random parts of the night feeling very stressed out, feeling like I had a heavy weight on my chest, sweating, confused. Sometimes I'd forget where I was, or I'd be like in a momentary daze. So, night terrors were something that really bothered me. And it would be something just as simple as maybe a shadow on the wall, or maybe, just a weird random noise outside. I did live in two properties where there were deaths that occurred, one through a fire, and that claimed the life of two people. And then there was another one that was just, I don't know what it was. The history of the house was very old, well over 100 years old. And I think that sometimes spiritual energy and things like that kind of get locked in there, almost like you're on loop or repeat. So when you interact with things, and I think that also explains, especially when it comes to ghostly things, why when people say they see a spirit or an apparition, they see them going upstairs that aren't there, or going into a room, or passing through a wall. I think that's because when they were alive, there were stairs there. There was a hall there. There was a doorway, but they live in a different time than we do as far as that property is concerned. So I think that was a big portion of the issues I had growing up as far as like what haunted me in my dreams. And of course that translated later to, when I started writing about Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger and this whole idea of dying in your dreams. And that means
Mhm.
dying for real. I remembered the night terrors, and that's actually what I called this book. So I did announce that this is the last Freddy Krueger book that I'm doing. I'm taking
Yeah.
a well needed vacation from Elm Street because
Right.
I've been there for the better part of my life, and I'll always be an Elm Street brat. But there's so many other things I want to try out, and experiment. I'm actually working on drafting an idea to do a collaboration with my wife, who is also a very talented writer. So I'm working on
Mhm.
getting some things together and doing like a little passion project with her because it's time to give Freddie a little bit of a break. But I'm going out with a bang, as far as
Mhm.
this everything's concerned. There's been rave reviews so far. So the new book is called Night Terrors, and it's my seventh book. I co-authored another book with Mick Strawn. That was like a nonfiction book on the making of Nightmare 4. So this is actually my third and final fiction book related to
Mhm.
Elm Street. So yeah, and originally I was going to release it on the 40th anniversary. So actually, the back of the book has got 11/9/84 on it, which
Mhm.
that's my barcode, and that is the month, day, and year that the original Nightmare on Elm Street was released. So I managed to still end up with 11/9/84 in my UPC code.
I was gonna say you got lucky with that because you really can't easily pick those UPC codes often.
Oh no, they're
Yeah.
a pain.
Yeah, I know. So with you leaving Freddy Krueger behind in Elm Street, I just knowing as a writer myself, you'll be back.
It's one of those things. Yeah, I have a feeling sometime down the line I'll be back, and really, it's kind of almost come true because I'm working on that film with Dark House Entertainment, which is
Mhm.
called Blake's Crazy Nightmare, and that's sort of like a fictionalized version of how Nightmare on Elm Street has impacted me,
Mhm.
and the idea that Freddy is not just restricted to being a fictionalized character. That sometimes talk about him, work about him can sort of um, conjure him up, for lack of a
Mhm.
better term.
Right.
And yeah, he wreaks havoc in my life for sure. I've already shot some dailies for it, a couple of trailers, which I did send to you sometime back, and then
Mhm.
just some footage because it's going to be a full length film, and again, Nightmare on Elm Street, style fan film. It's sort of my love letter to the franchise, but it's also bringing back a scarier version of Freddy because I really liked Freddy in the first two or three films, like
Mhm.
that dark kind of gallows humor that he had,
Yeah.
whether it was bashing someone's head into a television or pulling somebody down into a mattress. He always had a really really sick and twisted sort of sense of humor that was in there. So I wanted to kind of bring that back since I'm saying goodbye to it for now.
Mhm.
I figured why not go out with bringing him back the best that he could be, which is evil
Right.
and witty as possible,
Mhm.
but without being too much of a comedian.
Right. And the one thing though, getting back to how, I mean, the actor who played Freddie was just absolutely amazing. I think if 50 years from now that they were to do a remake, I don't think it would be the same without him.
I
It
don't think
just,
so either. I agree. I mean, obviously they did remake it. They did a reimagining of the
Mhm.
series in 2010, and it's that the opinion on that is kind of hit or miss. But
Right.
generally, it was met with mixed reviews. I
Mhm.
thought that the story was perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But I think what a lot of it was for people is that they got used to seeing Robert playing
Mhm.
Freddy,
Right.
and then all of a sudden that part of it was gone, and there was a new person in there. So it was sort of like bigger shoes to fill. I mean, that glove is quite a that's
Yep.
quite
Mhm.
a thing to have to fill with your own personality and the
Yeah.
swagger and
Mhm.
everything, and it just it's one of those things. I think everything comes back again. We see it with fashion all the time, music,
Mhm. Yep.
and everything. So I think it'll be back. But I think that he left such an indelible impression on film goers with that he and I both agree. I've heard him say it 100 times. He said when they you know get a tombstone ready for me, one of the things that'll probably be on there is Robert England, whatever you do, don't fall asleep, or something like that. Like he'll never
Or,
be able to like
or
escape
scratch
from.
marks across it like a claw scratched
Right.
across it.
Yeah, claw marks across it. Yeah.
Yep. And that just goes to show, I mean, I know we're kind of getting off topic, but I think we talked about this last time though, but that goes to show how good of an actor he is because I remember I've only seen one Nightmare on Elm Street because that's all I could handle.
Really? I had no
Yeah,
idea.
I've only seen one. That's about as, I don't even think I finished it. But it was when I was a teenager, like when it first came out. But I loved him in V.
Oh, he was great in V. Yeah, he was
It
really
just
good.
goes to show he was so mild tempered in that one.
Oh, he was, and that's more how he really is. He's just a nice guy.
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah, that's just it shows the level of talent and like the personality and everything he brings to that role. But yes, we're off topic. Let me help us get back.
I know.
Sorry about that.
That's one thing I always think of when I think of him. But yeah, and one question I know we didn't talk about this last time, but more recently I've started working what's called Project Umpra, and we're actually in search of finding answers regarding the Hat Man. And I was just wondering if you've ever encountered the Hat Man with the different paranormal experiences you've had, or any stories that might have been shared with you that might have helped with some of your writing.
I have not encountered the Hat Man, as you call him, but it's something I have heard about.
Mhm.
It's not something I've ever. I mean, obviously, being from Tennessee, I hear about these other things that the woods and what the woods may hold, and sort of all this kind of thing. And that lore influenced me a lot on the book that I put out last year called Whispers in the Woods. It was more of a
Mhm.
Southern Appalachian ghost story gone wrong, for lack of a better description. But yeah, it's like
When's
I
that
love.
one becoming a movie?
Oh, right. I've already had two or three directors asking me about it, and so far I've passed on it. It's like I don't
Mhm.
know if I want it to be a movie like just yet. It's one of the shortest books I've ever done. It's well under my normal page amount. It's like 76 pages. It's tiny,
Mhm.
just under 20,000 words, but it's so different from everything else I've done. I actually had a fan message me and he told me, this is the most disturbing thing that I think I've ever seen you write. How in the world did you pull that off? And I'm like, that's the kind of, that's a
Mhm.
sign.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And to do it in less than 20,000 words, to have that much of an impact.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. My
yeah.
wife actually chimed in back. I can hear her. She was saying the Hat Man is why she can't take Benadryl. So,
Yep. And we're trying to fight that myth as well.
right.
It's like how that happened. Thank you, TikTok. No.
Right. TikTok can be, it can be a blessing or it can be a curse. And sometimes I
Yep.
see it both in the same day. So,
Yep. Yeah. No, no, it's interesting. And um, but yeah, and we have some interesting stories that I can share with you down the road that maybe we can work on something in the future.
I'd
Because
love to
we have,
collaborate. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
we have a bunch of stories that we've collected because we've interviewed more than 1,000 people
Wow.
regarding their around the world, and several people have given us permission to use their stories. So
That's amazing. I'm,
yeah,
I'm, I'm
and
shocked. I'm just not hearing about this. I blame you. I blame you.
I because we haven't released it yet. So
Oh,
I'm looking at my questions really quick, and that's taken care of. So I know last time we really didn't talk more about it because we mostly talked about your writing and your nightmare and all of that stuff that, the night terrors and everything, but composing. You've sent me some of the most interesting songs I've ever heard. And it's like, holy cow.
thank you. I think.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean it in a good way. It's like, it's just really, and it's everything from upbeat music to slow, laid back music. It's like there's really no one, how when you listen to some composers, it's like, oh, yeah, that's this composer because it's the same thing over and over and over. And with your stuff, it's not. It's absolutely amazing. Where do you get your inspiration from?
First of all, thank you so much for the compliments. I mean, I come from a musical family, and my father was a professional guitar player, so that was the first thing I did before I was an actor or a writer. I was a guitar player, and I did that for a living for many years. So I found when I was playing that it was a really good way for me to kind of push the envelope creatively, and kind of since I didn't have to really worry about keeping anyone else happy, especially once I went out on my own and started doing all of my own music, I was able to kind of push the boundaries on what it is that I can do. I'm able to play about a dozen different instruments very proficiently. Guitar, bass, keyboards are the primaries, but I also arrange strings. And one of the things I love about string music, and that goes back to obviously Mozart, that goes back to all the classical composers like that, and Schubert, and several of those like that. But one of the things that I loved was Bernard Herrmann, who did the
Mhm.
scores for Psycho.
Okay. Yeah.
And the striking string arrangement, the discordant notes, the lack of melody, or
Mhm.
the very, very minimal existence of melody is something that I think is very powerful, because a lot of people don't think about it when they think of music for a film. Music really does make a difference in a film. It takes it to another level, even just soundscapes, just
Mhm.
textures. A perfect example is I just had a film come out that I scored called The Bombshell Butcher. It just came out on the 13th, and it premiered in Florida. And when I originally saw the film, I watched the film. Obviously, there was no music or anything like that, and I was like, what would, based on the character situations, what would I be doing? What would I want to hear? What would be the most striking or the most memorable piece of music I could look for that sequence? And one of my biggest influences, composer, for film, like as far as that particular style, Jay Chataway, who did the score for Silver Bullet. I don't know
Mhm.
if you ever saw Silver Bullet with Corey Haim and
Yep.
Gary Busey, but the score on that film is absolutely amazing. And of course, Charles Bernstein, who did the Nightmare on Elm Street theme, he was a
Mhm.
big influence. Danny Elfman, I really love his stuff. And Fred Molan, who did Forever Night. It was a vampire
Mhm.
show from the early 90s. I love his use of string arrangements in very minor key, like E minor, A minor, D
Mhm.
minor. He favored those minor keys, but it usually had a really nice resolve to a major key. So I
Mhm.
love the fact that he would move around with those. So when I compose things, the first thing I do is I look at the situation of the characters and what they're dealing with at that time. And I think about, well, if this is a murder that they've just discovered, what would I want to hear if I happened upon a body somewhere that had been killed, in like very,
Mhm.
violent or
Right.
whatever way. And it's like, well, I would want something striking, something discordant. I would want maybe some synth, almost like otherworldly sounds. So I kind of just go back and forth between that. I literally am the only composer I know that will actually take a film, watch a film without any music, and then compose an entire film soundtrack from scratch. Like, normally, that's why I have such a large amount of time when I'm booked for a film where that's the only project I'm doing, is because I'll
Mhm.
sometimes go back and rewatch several scenes. Like on The Bombshell Butcher, I went back and rewatched that film 3 or 4 times while I was working on the music, because even then, the second or third time, I would say, well, I want to try this idea for that scene. Let's
Mhm.
switch the music. Let's switch the music from scene 12 or whatever, and put the music from scene, 4 in scene 12, and put the music from scene 12 into scene 4, and see how
Mhm.
that works. And sometimes it worked great, sometimes not so much, but that's part of the fun. Is
Right.
it's honing my skill and using music and the lack thereof, because something else that I do with composing is sometimes I'll have a piece of music, but I'll add in a really abrupt soundscape to it, like maybe a resolve to something that shouldn't be in there. And that's striking because that grabs the audience's attention. It's like, oh, whoa, what the hell is that? I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting that. And that's sort of what I kind of fuel myself with as far as like inspiration. But so far this year, I've done uh, 6 different films, a couple of commercials, and I've done 4 films for Dark House Entertainment where I was doing the music for them. And
Mhm.
that's sort of like when I took on work for them, that's all that I did for that, period of time from January up until about
Mhm. Yeah.
July. So it was only their stuff.
But it keeps you busy and out of trouble.
It does keep
So
me busy. I don't know about out of trouble,
trouble.
because the late nights and going to bed
Mhm.
and keeping vampire hours and then having to get up
Oh,
and turn around and do it again the next day. I'm like, what am I
yeah.
doing to myself?
True. Now, and that's funny because it's interesting that you put so much into it, and I'm sure other composers do as well. But most people, when they're watching TV or movies, they really don't notice the music until it's not there, type of thing. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like it's part of the movie and it's just expected to be there, type of thing. If you're not watching it for the music. So one question that leads me to is, do you personally think, even if the average person may not pay attention to the music in a movie, does the music make or break a movie?
I think it can. I
Mhm.
think that good music and even unusual music can make or break a movie. I'll give you a perfect example. Whenever someone thinks of Halloween, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if they've seen one of the films all the way through or not. They remember John Carpenter's piano score for
Mhm.
that.
Yep.
Or the Exorcist, Tubular Bells. They remember
Right.
that. So it's
Yep.
like whether
Jaws.
they Jaws. And you were talking about films that maybe the absence of music and how it impacts things. I had this discussion with my wife recently. The Birds is one of the films I've seen that has a very, very noticeable absence of music. It's just soundscapes, bird sounds, and stuff like that.
Right.
So sometimes the music or the absence of music in certain places can really make the film or commercial or whatever the project is have that much more impact. So I think that while I don't think that necessarily music will make or break a film in that context, I think that it can't hurt. It can add to the overall enjoyment. And also maybe there's a sequence that you remember in one of these films and you remember a certain piece of music is recalled later when you think about that particular scene.
Right.
Like in Halloween, for instance, when all of a sudden you see the camera view through the mask of Michael Myers as a child when he kills his sister, you see the little eye mask, but you hear that and it's like, oh, that's about to be bad. That's about to be really bad. So it just sometimes it brings up a memory or it triggers that. So I think that it can be very powerful.
Yep. Perfect. And one thing I saw on the list that you sent me is in 2023, it says that you starred and produced The Sacrifice. What was that about?
What was that about? So I did star in that film. So The Sacrifice was like a short film, just a short 5-6 minute short film while I was doing a signing actually at a haunt. I was at Screamville Haunted Attraction actually in Knoxville, and I was there doing a signing, and my director came to see me, and he's like, well, you know what the hell? I've got my camera with me. I always bring it with me. Let's shoot something. So I didn't realize it, but a couple of other people that were involved with the film actually came in to see me, and we all sat down and said, let's do this. So The Sacrifice is about an author who's doing a public signing, and he has a weird encounter with a fan, and the fan is very off-putting and makes that author very uncomfortable. Of course, it's me playing a fictionalized version of myself, and I was like, get away from me. I don't know what you. They keep trying to touch me and like grab things, and then they throw some kind of like dust on me, like they have something in their jacket and they throw it in my eyes, and it makes me really, really tired. And then all of a sudden the shots go black and all you see is that, and you can hear noises and stuff. And then it turns out that the fan is actually like a witch who feels slighted by me in some way, because they asked to do a reading on me, like an aura reading and stuff, and I said no, I don't think so. That's okay, I'd rather not. And that upsets them. So the fan then takes me out to the cornfield behind the haunt and strangles me to death while I'm indisposed of and unable to react because of this weird dust that they put all over me. So it was weird, but yeah, it was the first time. I think that was the first time in my life where I died in my career where I died in a cornfield. So I could put,
yeah. Lesson learned there: never say no to a witch.
Right, and definitely don't just don't say no to the fans. I mean,
Right.
and I try not to. That's always been something I've been good at, and I've been good about doing, is making sure all the fans feel like they're important and take my time with them. I don't rush them along. I don't want them to feel rushed. I want them to enjoy the experience. And this was a way for me to play a different version of myself. And not trying to be mean, but I kind of really play myself as sort of an asshole, like a pretentious, stuck up kind of personality. And oftentimes early in my career, I was always cast as a bad guy. I don't know why, because everyone that ever worked with me always said I was the nicest person. I'm like, maybe they just know because I can go there and take myself there mentally, they want to see me be bad. So
they're tired of seeing the nice guy.
And then he comes to kill. I played that sadistic prison guard, and I swear that nightstick, I've signed more pictures of that damn nightstick sequence. I have the nightstick in my mouth for the director said, ad lib, give me something that's uncomfortable, make me uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, you said the word. So I proceed to do that, and I put this nightstick in my mouth, and I kind of lick it and kind of drag it down myself. It was just it. I was working with another actor on the sequence, and they told me, they said, dude, that's messed up. That's I said, hey, that's what the director wanted. And that film actually this year won Best Featurette at Tampa Bay Screams Horror Convention. So I can say I've co-starred in an award-winning horror film, which is a first for me. Normally when I do a horror film, I have no expectation that it's going to win awards, because horror sort of, even now, as much as it's accepted, still has that sort of like thing behind it, almost like a stigma, where a horror film, it's not going to get much critical, reception in a positive way or win awards or things like that. And I'm all about breaking those kind of conceptions if I can. My wife also just chimed in and said it's because I'm tall with the dark eyebrows and such too, that makes me sort of, so I'm almost 6'5", so I am a pretty tall, commanding figure, so maybe that's why they always cast me as the bad guy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's stereotype looking. So before, because I do want to talk about, because I saw on the list that you sent me that in addition to Blake's Crazy Nightmare, that you do have 2 more shows in production, or 2 more projects in production. But I do want to talk about, just because this is Ghost Education 101, when you're filming. I've talked to other people who've done filming for shows, and of course there's been rumors on other shows like Poltergeist and movies like that where paranormal activity actually was happening because the actual movie filming stirred up whatever was happening at the house. Have you guys ever noticed any strange occurrences that at the locations that you might have been filming at?
Oh, absolutely. When I shot, one of the earliest memories I have is when I shot my very first film. I was in an industrial space, and that film was called Death Row. And it was supposed to be, the premise was it was set inside a haunted house that was full of employees, and one of the employees goes completely mad and starts killing the patrons that come into the haunted house. And then it turns to where they turn on the employees too. So then they start killing the employees. So while we were filming in there, it was extremely hot. There was no air conditioning running. And that's very common on sets when you film in an industrial space, especially in like a secluded warehouse area. I was about 15 minutes from downtown Nashville, Tennessee, like in that area where I filmed it, in this industrial space. And there was one specific scene where I was supposed to be smoking a cigarette, and I was talking to one of the other actors about my plans for the night after I got off work at the haunt. So after we wrapped on that scene, I put my cigarette out, stomped it out on the bottom of my boot, and then threw it away, and then proceeded to walk down an unpopulated area because they were still filming, and I wanted to go just have a minute to myself, and kind of just wind down from the experience. And I walked into a spot where I swear it felt like somebody left a refrigerator door open. Like I was like, it's 90 degrees in here. It was during the summer. It was in June, and it was hot outside, and it had to be 90 degrees in the warehouse. And big steel doors shut. It was dark. There was no light other than the light from the backlighting from the light crew and from everybody filming for the production. But the other areas that I was in were unpopulated. There was no camera equipment, nothing out there. And I just remember that cold feeling. It made my skin kind of prickle, and I kind of got a chill, and I kind of touched the back of my neck too, because I was like, what in the world? It was really disconcerting, and I never was able to explain it. But it's like that warehouse was so hot that there is no way that was a natural occurring thing. That there was just some cold spot in this warehouse. There was just no way. I mean, because as soon as I stepped outside of the room and moved past that area, it was back to being blistering hot again. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced. It's like almost like I've read that there are areas sometimes where there's supposed to be ghostly activity where there's a sudden drop in air temperature. And usually it's either a little cold or it's a really cold. But what made it so interesting was because it was so hot outside that the sudden temperature change, it was almost like it slapped me in the face. It was like I walked into a wall almost. It was that stark. So that was one occurrence. And then there was another time, actually, believe it or not, at the haunt, when I was filming The Sacrifice, they had some things kind of like up like scarecrow type things out there. And I swore while I was getting ready for that end sequence when my character was to be killed, that I saw movement out there in the corn stalks near those scarecrows. But I can't. I mean, again, it could have been just anything. It could have been I was tired. It could have been anything. I just know that I was like, I'm laying down and the director's filming. The crew is standing right here, and whatever that was that's moving is out of frame. They can't see it, and it's behind me. So if something does come out of the corn stalks, I'm laying down. It's almost like I have a bullseye painted on me. Here, take this, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird. But that's the only two times that I ever had a weird occurrence on set. Now I did have a weird occurrence in a cemetery outside of that where it's the weirdest thing, and I'm sure this is going to probably freak a lot of folks out, but I was in a cemetery where there were lots of Civil War veterans buried, and someone had gotten, I guess, either gotten into or the vault had broken, because as I passed it, the ashes of the deceased person got caught up in like the wind, and they blew out all over me.
Oh.
So I was covered in some guy from the Civil War era, some soldier, and I was like, okay, because what else can you do? You're covered in what you think is dust, but when I looked and saw this giant crack in the vault that you could stick your whole arm into, I was like, well, that's whoever it was. Just like, no, they're no longer in there. They're in my hair. You know, on my face.
And if it wasn't windy out that night, someone was trying to get your attention.
I'm sure. And I've always been fascinated by Civil War things, which is why I decided to go to that cemetery. It was the National Cemetery in Nashville. There was one other one that I went to that gave me a creepy feeling called Mount Olivet. And apparently there was a vault where a lady was buried. And she was buried with her children. And I did some digging and found out that she had poisoned her children and then poisoned herself. So it was like a murder-suicide. That was, and I got weird feelings being around that vault because you could see into it. And there wasn't any glass. So it's like I was breathing this air that was in there. And I was just, it was really weird.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you love Civil War stuff, you're going to love my next book. I just signed the contract for, the title's really long and I can never remember it because they keep changing it on me. It's basically covering Civil War sites in Florida.
Fantastic. That's interesting. I definitely want to read that. Paranormal
activity surrounding that. So I'm looking forward to that one.
I've got to get copies of those. I've got to make sure. I've got to read those. They sound so good. I mean, that's the stuff that I like. I love when history blends with paranormal things like that, because I feel like there's good instances of that in history that can happen that haven't been explored yet. And that Civil War stuff is definitely one of those things. Yeah,
because we have Fort Jefferson. It's about a 2-hour boat ride off of St. Sarasota.
Okay.
So it's just a 2-hour boat ride from Key West. So it's kind of like right out in the water over there. And that's where Dr. Mudd was sent to prison after Lincoln's assassination.
Oh,
and there's a lot of paranormal activity on that because it's an island fort. And then Gamble Plantation is about an hour south of where I'm at. And that is the furthest south, fully standing antebellum plantation in the U.S. And it's still, I mean, it looks brand new.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that.
Keeping that up. So if you ever come to Florida, make sure you get to those 2 locations.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, I mean, I know we talked about paranormal activity you had while filming, but is there a haunted location that you would love to film a horror movie at?
Is there a haunted location that I would love to film a horror movie at? I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I'll have to think on that for just a second.
Biltmore.
That's a good idea. I love my wife is always there to help. Always there to the Biltmore.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that's one. And I would actually love to go out and maybe film something in the area where the Lizzie Borden situation happened out there in Fall River. That would be really nice.
Yeah. No, it's I love that area. What I would love to do along those lines is I would love to track down the history of the Hatfield and McCoys, because I've actually followed their history very well, and go to the haunted locations, because there's actually locations where the feud happen that are haunted.
I love that. It's
that
another
I
way to
would love
blend
to get to.
history. I love that. The
Yep.
marriage of history and the paranormal. It really
Right.
works.
Yep. Yep. And that's what I would love. That's my next project that I'm trying to do, but it's up in Kentucky and West Virginia and not quite close to Florida.
Ah,
So, but yeah, that's on my list. And one place that I went there last month. It was Waverly Hills. Oh my goodness, this place is massive, and I don't even know what to say about it. It was absolutely amazing. My first time ever being there, fell in love with it, and every time I'm walking up and down the different hallways, or any moment that I had on myself, I was envisioning this would be a great place for a horror movie. Or could you imagine if we actually told the stories, in a horror movie sense, of the people who lived here back in the day?
The Waverly Hills Sanatorium was one of the first places that my wife and I went on a date. I know that's a
Okay.
really strange place to have a date, right?
Oh, that sounds like somewhere I'd be happy to go to on a first date.
We were both happy, but I'll have to send you some stuff because she and I both took some pictures of some strange occurrences there. I'll have to send those to your email. But like it was definitely one of those where I was like, what in the world did I just see? What was that?
Mm-hmm.
And it you feel it. Like there's such an like a sense of like sadness there, like such this tremendous sense of sadness and like despair. But there's also still a sense of like hopefulness because there were interactions there with the ghost children, the ghostly children in that wing that were very, very interesting. So the ghost children are not letting the situation bother them. They're still having fun and doing what they do, So
I was on the 4th floor walking around and someone grabbed my hand, but it was someone short grabbed my hand while I was walking around. And I was like, "Aw." And I was telling the person I was with, someone just grabbed my hand.
That's where we were, the 4th floor. That's where that happened. And it was the most amazing, surreal thing. But I've always wanted to go back because we had a blast.
Yep. Well, I mean, I haven't officially announced it, but I was there filming with Brandon Elvis and Haunted Discoveries.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be out next year.
I'm looking forward to it. Please remind me about that. I want to see that.
I will. So, I mean, I know they had a whole bunch of people out there. It's a spinoff of their thing. It's called Haunted Discoveries Family Spirits. So I was there talking about my grandfather and how I got started in the paranormal field.
Oh, fantastic. I love that.
So that was a lot of fun. And as of 8 days ago, I'm finally able to talk about it.
Hooray for the lapse, right? Yes.
Right. And the hurricane hit at the same time. So I was like, I really haven't shared much about it.
There's been a lot going on for sure.
Yep. So I'm going to be sharing my photos here soon once I have a moment to do that. But yeah, I wanted Waverly Hills, I think would be a great location for you to film one of your horror films at and have just the stories that you could tell from that location.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to do that. I definitely want to go back because I mean, every part of it lends to something ideal like that. Like the Death Tunnel is a perfect place to even, even if there was only one place to film, the Death Tunnel would be where you'd want to do it.
Right. Yeah. When we were there with our naked eyes, we could see almost like a lantern, like someone was carrying a lantern. It wasn't a spirit orb because it was like a candle that was lit at the end of the hallway when we were there. And it was amazing.
I'm glad you had a great time and got to experience some stuff like that. I mean, that place is a hotbed of activity.
Yes. A lot of fun there. So let's, since we only have about 20 minutes real quick, I know we're not airing on our normal day. So hello, Antoine. Thank you for watching. He's one of our regular followers on Wednesday. This will re-air on Wednesday if you're interested in catching the whole episode. But before we leave, you did have 2 other projects that I do want, if we have time, I want to get back to finding out exactly what the Bombshell Butcher was, because that just sounds, the title is intriguing enough on its own.
Right. Yeah, we can go back and touch base on that again for sure.
Okay. But it shows that currently in production, you have Blood Splatter and Midnight Messenger.
Yes.
Those sound so interesting.
Yes, so Midnight Messenger, I did sign an NDA on that. I can't really talk about Midnight Messenger as much, but it is definitely one of those. It's definitely a supernatural horror, kind of thing. But I produced that one and did some of the the music stuff on that as well. So
Okay.
I got a producer credit and a composer credit, but I wasn't on screen for that one at all. And I did the same for Blood Splatter. It's more of a slasher, kind of more of an original slasher, because I felt that, you know, when I met with the director, he had this great idea. David Brandon, who's the founder and director for Dark House Entertainment, had this great idea about this nondescript kind of menace that's, you know, kind of conjured up through like a cursed videotape, because he grew up like as a child of the 80s, like I did, where we go to the video store every Friday night with your pizza and you pick out
your little blue Blockbuster card.
yeah, and you grab yourself some pizza and you do a little weekend horror film, you know, and all that. So I thought it was really, really cool to be able to be involved with that. I did some of the scoring stuff in that and also produced that as well. But those were two that I just finished wrapping on about 2.5, 3 months ago, you know, once I got everything done that I needed to do. And of course, being on set, traveling, and then the composing, I don't have to be on set necessarily for that. So that's really cool that I can do that from my home studio and, you know, just be on set for the producer stuff. But yeah, those were two really fun projects. Unfortunately, with the NDA, I can't, you know, go into much more detail, but they're going to be really good, scary, practical effects driven films. That's something that David is very much a student of, is the second golden age of horror, you know, like of the 80s through the 90s, those kind of practical effects. And we love that. And we both really just enjoy gratuitous amounts of gore, you know, done right, you know, I want it to look good, but I love a good story, you know, that's driven and accented by those kind of things like that, because I feel like there's such a focus on the splat stick elements of some of the horror films to make it more of like a spoof or like a horror comedy. We wanted to go really dark with this, so I like the difference. And as far as the Bombshell Butcher goes, you know, to circle back to that you mentioned, that's another one that's like a slasher. So Chris Lato put that out, and I worked with Reaper Films Productions, and did a scoring on that. It's really, really good. Really amazing film, set very modern, you know. But it just, I love that it has that different kind of like atmosphere to it. Like it's totally something that you could believe would happen. You know, and I like that. I think it's really scary when your next door neighbor turns out to be a serial killer or somebody that you could believe, like, you know, instead of trying to like imagine, you know, that, oh, this person's come back from the grave and they're killing. I kind of like it when we can flip that on its ear and make it seem like it's a real person doing this kind of thing. So.
Right. Almost be relatable.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, all I did was score on that one, but it was such a pleasure to work with the cast and crew. And when you get a chance, definitely check it out, because it's one that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I never heard of it until you mentioned it in your message to me. And the minute you told me that title, I mean, I'm envisioning, you know, the movie covers from the 80s and like Pamela Anderson on the cover with her legs spread and, you know, black leather and a butcher's knife is what I envisioned that's why I was like, that sounds interesting, but that's like the first thing that comes to mind for me thinking that.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's like, again, when you see the because I do have the poster for the film up there, there's some similar, you know, you're on the right track, you know, as far as that goes. So.
Okay. Yeah. And Antoine wants to know if you are taking any thoughts, or I have an idea for Blake if you're taking any thoughts. So Antoine, if you want to get in touch with him, just send me a message. I believe you're connected with me on Facebook. I think you sent me a message at my Dr. Heather Leigh page or on GhostEd, and I'll make sure to get you in contact with him.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out. And thank you for joining the broadcast and checking out, and for, you know, staying a part of the community. Ghost Education One. I mean, I love the show, and I'm so thrilled to be a part of it again. So.
Yeah, we kind of, every year we have a plan for the whole year. And then about this time of year, because we get busy with all of the Halloween and the conventions, and it just kind of falls apart. So I think next year we're going to work until October.
There you go.
So, but yeah, or, you know, take hurricane season off at least. And then I had one more question that, oh, yes. When it comes to scoring music or contributing your voice, have you ever done it either for an animated film, or have you done it for any of the video games that have been based on the horror movies?
I have not lent my voice. I've been told that I have a very commanding voice and that people would like to see me do some of the animated stuff. One of the things that I like is that when I can do certain things and manipulate my vocal cords to sound different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do it to entertain my children because,
Mm-hmm.
well, why else?
Right.
You want to entertain your kids. And sometimes, I
Mm-hmm.
entertain my wife. I'll just go into a room and I'll be like, hi, I'll get real high pitched, but I really like being able to do like monologues and have a dark, gritty kind of voice. And I kind of like to do that like I'm doing now,
Mm-hmm.
put a little bit of grit on it. Like,
Right.
how dare you talk to me that way? You have no idea
Mm-hmm.
who you're dealing with,
Yeah.
like do something really dark. But then I keep, when I sing, the reason I started singing is because I kind of hated the super deep Southern Tennessee accent that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get rid of it when I sang.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out when I sing that I lose my accent. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Yeah.
awesome. So let me keep singing.
So with your voice, you would make the perfect Scooby-Doo villain.
Oh, you think I'd be a good Scooby-Doo villain?
I think you would.
Hey, if you're out there listening, whoever's in charge of that, Warner Brothers, whoever's out there, hey, hit me up.
Yep. Yep. And I know it's probably something that might not have crossed your mind, or it might have, but have you ever thought of, or have they ever approached you to be part of the Walking Dead series?
No, I have not been. I
Okay.
have not been approached to be part of the Walking Dead series.
Okay.
I would love to do that.
Right. Because I love that series.
I would love to
Mm-hmm.
to do that a lot. As a matter of fact, I'm actually doing a show this coming weekend with Santiago Cirillo, who was Julio
Mm-hmm.
in season 4 of The Walking Dead. So I'm going to be there with him and with Mick Strong from Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's like I get The Walking Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yep.
It's gonna be a good day.
Yep, I love Santi. He was on my show a while back, and we were supposed to be at a convention and a ghost hunt together, but that event got canceled last minute. So, but yeah, I was looking forward to it. So I had him on my show to interview the different guests that were going to be there. He's hysterical. I love him.
He's amazing. He is a ball of fire, and he is
Mm-hmm.
so amazing, so gracious, and so good with his fans. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And I
Yep.
think that that's something that I really admire, is that he takes time for everyone. He
Mm-hmm.
makes everyone feel important and everyone feel
Yep.
special. And
Mm-hmm.
he's got such a zest for life, And like
Yep.
you said, he's funny as hell. I mean, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met.
And we were dying laughing the show because there was like 10 of us on the show, and it got derailed once he came on. It was like the event coordinator was like, Heather, get this group under control. I'm like, they're having fun.
Good luck with that.
I know, it's like, just let them go. They're having fun. So before we close it out, the one question I do have is, what would be your dream project to work on in the future?
I would really love to do a project around cryptids, specifically the Loch Ness Monster. I've written a book on the Loch Ness Monster. I would love to do a cryptid, like a film about a lake monster or something.
Mm-hmm.
The allure of that, and the fact that, we've not explored the depths of our oceans. We can't. I mean, there's only so far we can go down. So we really have no idea what the hell's down there.
Right. Yep.
So I want to do something
Mm-hmm.
cryptid related. I would love to do like a lake monster, or some kind of maybe a sea serpent or
Mm-hmm.
some sort of sea creature or lake monster type film. I'd love to score it and maybe even be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be kind of cool,
Right.
Or the bad guy that releases the thing. I mean, I'll do that too.
Or the one who created the thing.
Hey, there you go.
You never know. That actually sounds really interesting. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I guess maybe because I grew up with a family that had a lake house, and we went boating there all the time. And I spent a lot of time in there. And the one thing I hated about lakes is that you can't see what's underneath. And I used to have nightmares that the not seagrass, but the grass on the bottom of the lake would always reach up and grab my ankles and drown me. Those were my nightmares growing up.
That's terrifying.
And so, yeah, so to this day, I still have a fear of drowning. I mean, I'm sure everybody else does too, but it's like, but I still love going boating and stuff like that. So I don't know.
No, you're facing it the best way you can,
Yeah, I know. I live in Florida. I gotta enjoy boating. It's one of those things. So anyway, thank you for being on today. I'm sorry we had to change the date. I was glad that we were able to find time to get this recorded, because I did not want to miss it with the Halloween season coming out. And like I said, several people were asking when we were going to have you on again. So I'm definitely going to have to maybe have you on twice a year, so that way they can see you more often throughout the year.
Absolutely. I'm always willing to be a part. You just let me know the date and time, and I will make it work for you. Okay.
Perfect. And I will definitely, because I do have 2 ideas based on cases that I've done that I've fictionalized into horror type stories.
I like it.
Yeah, so I'll definitely finish typing those up and maybe send them to you to see what you think.
I'm intrigued. Absolutely. Send away.
Yep. And real quick, Jerry, welcome to the show. I know we're on a Sunday instead of a Wednesday, but we will have the replay airing on Wednesday at our normal time. So make sure you catch that. Before we go, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you and get a copy of your book? Because I know that you do autograph copies of your books as well.
I do, yes. You can go to my website. It's just blakebestauthor.wixsite.com/blakebesthorror. I'm working on getting that shorter as soon as I can because it is a lot to say. But if you search
and I'll share all the
Blake
links
Best,
on our page as well, so everyone can just click on them.
yeah, and if you search Blake Best, author or writer or actor or whatever, musician, it'll all lead you right back to that site. And yes, there are signed copies available. I've got 5, 6 different books in stock, and then I've got like ebook stuff too, because not everybody has time to like order and wait for a paperback, or they would just rather have like a digital copy. So I do those as well. So
okay, cool. And anything else you want to add before we start closing out?
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a blast to be back on the show. I love your opening music. I'm really like the more that I listen to your opening credits and your opening stuff, the more I love it. So
yeah, Philip did all of that, and I think he used AI. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, it still sounds amazing and everything looks so great. So thank you for having me. And just if you want to reach out to me, you can follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Just search Blake Best. I'm very hard to miss. So
yep. And we will make sure that we share all that information out as well so people can find it. So real quick, our standard closings. Make sure you guys follow us on Facebook at Ghost Education 101. You can catch the replay for tonight's show on Wednesday, but you can also watch the replays of all of our other shows on YouTube at Ghost Education 101. And then we do air every other week now that we're back on track on Parallax TV on Facebook. Then don't forget, we are now airing our replays of our more popular shows. Some of them are edited for time on WDJY 99.1 FM in Monday nights at 9 p.m. In Atlanta. So if you're in the Atlanta area, you can catch us Monday nights on the radio. Then November 6th, the Haunted Librarian is coming back. She has a presentation on ghostly legends of missing people and ships. So make sure to stay tuned for that one. It's absolutely an amazing show. And then again, as a reminder, tonight's show will air on Wednesday, October 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern. And I am so sorry, guys, that Philip wasn't here. He's been dealing with a lot. And I know he has a lot going on too, and some special projects he wants to share. So we will make sure we get that on Facebook and then share that with you also next in 2 weeks on our next show. And on my end, again, like I had mentioned earlier, I am teaching a class at TMCC, Truckee Meadows Community College. It's going to be a live virtual class. If you go to their website, you can sign up for it. It is a 3-hour-long ghost hunting 101 class. And then on October 30th, I have another 3-hour-long class with them called Scientific Inquiry and the Paranormal, and it talks about how to use the scientific method and different scientific tools to do your paranormal research. And if you are in the Florida area, come by and see me in Lake Wales. I will be there this weekend for their Heritage Festival, signing books with Little Bus Books. We'll be there all weekend long. So again, thank you, Blake, for joining us. It has been super as always. Can't wait to talk to you again. And everyone, you all have a great night. Talk to you soon.
thank you so much.